Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Nexta. Next slide, please. No more? That's all we get? Krishna, Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Viditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev, if you so desire, please empower us in this class so that we may illuminate your glories. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. The Bhagavatam is the Amala Purana in that it gives the topmost understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth without an admixture of other processes. Its intention is stated in the second verse, Dharma Projita Kaitavo. Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. It's for the Satam, those who are completely serious about discovering the absolute truth. And it presents the highest truth, does the Bhagavatam, which is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. And it completely rejects even the semblance of any other process to reach the Supreme Absolute Truth, other than bhakti itself. This is its intention, to present bhakti as the highest method of obtaining the Lord. We find throughout the Bhagavatam, as we do in the Bhagavad Gita, various other methods described and seemingly prescribed. Ultimately, however, from the point of view of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his disciples who have enumerated his teachings, these are for comparative purposes. That is, by describing the various philosophies that relate to the Absolute Truth, one can by comparison then show the superiority of bhakti. Even in the discussion of philosophy in general, there are many different schools of thought through which the philosophers try to present a perfect path to understand the purpose of life and the absolute truth. In fact, there are altogether 6 darshans, or philosophical paths. There's Sankhya, which is a description of the elements of the material world, especially by the atheistic Kapila, who presented how everything evolves from subtle to gross. We have the process of yoga, presented by Patanjali Muni, who gave the 8-fold path of meditation. We have the path of Nyaya, which gives the techniques of logic to come to an understanding of the ultimate. We have Vaisesika philosophy by Kṛṣṇa, who describes the various aspects of metaphysical reality. We have Mimamsa philosophy, through which one has the systematic, in which there's a systematic approach to studying the Vedic literatures. However, Mimamsa philosophy doesn't come to an ultimate conclusion of this, our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then there's Vedanta, which of course must be explained by those in the path of pure devotional service to be accurately presented and understood by Srila Vyasadeva, Badarayana Vyasadeva. And that is considered by our acharyas to be the perfect presentation. And of course, Vyasadeva himself gave us the Vedanta Sutra. And the Vedanta Sutra is a summary of the Upanishads and the Vedic literatures. And then he gave what is called the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which is the explanation of the Vedanta Sutra. And of course, he gave that explanation in terms of, or being inspired by, his guru, Narada Muni. He had penned a version of the Bhagavat Purana to expound on the glories of devotional service. But when he met his guru and explained that he felt unsatisfied by his endeavors so far, which were significant because he had given the Vedas in various compartments by empowering various disciples to teach them so they could focus. He divided the Vedas, that's why he's called Vyasa, because Vyasa means an editor, someone who helps to present something in a more comprehensive way, or not comprehensive, but more understandable way to the audience. That's why he divided the one Veda into 4. And then from the Veda he gave the teachings of the Upanishads, which is the first fully transcendental aspect of the Vedas, because it's describing rational knowledge, that which is beyond the endeavor marked by the various compartments of knowledge that are inherent within the human, as described by the Vedas personified when they talk about these 5 levels of comprehension of the world. The first one is called Annamoy. Annamoy we can see in little children who are especially receptive, or I might say exclusively receptive to food. And of course, many animals are in that category as well. And then there's pranamoy, when one becomes aware that one's alive and subsequently tries to protect one's life. And if one is able to survive, then one feels successful in life. And then comes manomoy, is an awakening of mental speculation. Most of society is categorized on these 3 ways, or can be categorized based on observation. Above that, there's an evolution when one comes to vijnanamoy and realizes that there must be something more than these 3 base categories, and then one begins to investigate the self. This is the point at which the Upanishads point out to us that there's something beyond just the physical world. And if we look inside ourselves, we can see it, which is the soul and the consciousness within the body. This is vijnanamoy, that investigation, through which one can come to categorize the material energy and the spiritual energy as distinct categories, to know tattva. And from that position, bahunam jamanamante jnanamanmam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti sarmahatma sudurlabhaha, one may evolve to anandamoy, which is where one begins to develop one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the process of self-realization, one sees that the ultimate goal, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, is to be reconnected with Vasudeva. And this is where the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam begins. Dharma prodita kaitavo trapo paramo nimatsaranam satam. And the Vedanta summarized in the Vedanta Sutra and then expounded upon in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam then is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's specific emphasis. As Radhika Raman pointed out in his lecture when he was here several years ago, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy is the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is Mahaprabhu's philosophy. And in analyzing the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Srila Jiva Goswami, under the direction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the other Goswamis, has presented the Parivar Sutra, the place in which you say the rest of the Bhagavatam is explaining this verse. And Ete chamsa kalapumsa krishnastu bhagavan swayam indrari vakulam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. The Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ete chamsa kalapumsam. All others are his parts that emanate from him. And he's the source of everything. We hear also in the Brahma Samhita, the revelation by Brahma, after he had investigated the nature of Krishna in Vrindavan, wondering if he actually was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because in Krishna's Leela in Vrindavan, he doesn't look majestic or all-powerful like Narayan. He looks like a little child playing with his friends. And Brahma thought, could it be my Lord? And as we know, he played a trick by stealing away, using his mystic power, Krishna's cows, calves, and boys. And of course, Krishna, in his Vaibhava Prakash manifestations, re-manifested the exact same cows, calves, and boys, thus bewildering Brahma, who later came to find that the cows, calves, and boys he had stolen were still there. And in wonderment, and after further investigation, he found there was 2 sets. And he was bewildered. And Krishna, who showing overwhelming mystic power to Brahma, as anyone can perhaps remember a time in his or her life that when we're given some power, we may think that we're all powerful. It happens. And he thought that Krishna, as a little coward boy, was maybe not so powerful because of his tiny little body. But then Krishna showed him that all Narayans and all other avatars of the Lord were coming from his body. And he was the source of everything and everyone. And then, of course, we have the all-important chapter 14 of the 10th canto of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which gives the essential conclusion of Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. That Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan. Swayam is important. Swayam Bhagavan is a term which describes the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not used in relationship to Krishna's other manifestations, only to Krishna, Bhagavan's Swayam. And then, of course, going back to the other narrative, Narada had presented to Vyasadeva that you've not gone far enough in describing the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his pastimes in the spiritual world. And he pointed out to him that this is the only means of extricating oneself, not only extricating oneself from the material world, but more importantly, of developing love for Krishna. We crave specificity. And I was noting this morning while chanting japa and looking at Tulsi Devi's stand, there are carvings like peacocks and so forth. We could revert to architecture and designs like in Silicon Valley, or even more so, I was in Irvine, California, and driving through what's called a business park, with lovely surroundings in nature, but all the buildings were simply square or rectangular with no aesthetic features at all, because they're all meant for business and efficiency. And that I was left wanting. But when I saw the peacocks on Tulsi's stand, I was thinking, we all want to see the variety of this material world, of the world itself. We're not satisfied by plainness. And we're also not satisfied by the variety of the material world, because it's a reflection of the spiritual world. A la chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains that this material world is a reflection, so whatever variety you seek here for satisfaction won't ultimately satisfy you. You have to find the source of all the variety. And this was one of the points Narada was making, that whatever enticements you give to people for self-realization, naishkarmyam apya chuta bhava varjitam nashobhate jnanam alam niranjanam, that they're not beautiful enough to attract the soul. Even naishkarmyam, the idea of selfless service in the world, working just for a higher cause, not attaching yourself to the fruits of your labor, ordinary self-realization won't do it. You can be even liberated in the sense of knowing you're not your body, beyond even the theoretical knowledge. And still, without devotional service, he says, without achuta bhava, or an emotion awakening for Krishna, then in ashobhate jnanam alam niranjanam, it's not good enough to satisfy the soul and attract you to perform devotional service, which naturally takes one to a higher level of engagement in this world. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasa dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param jushva nivartate. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you may be engaged in restraining your senses, but you'll always be thinking about it. And you know, at the right moment when you're a little depressed, you're going to find yourself sitting in a corner with an empty half-gallon of ice cream and a spoon in your hand and wonder what happened. Or any number of other attractions in the material world. People may restrain their senses for a long time, but the urge within, Vishwamrita had meditated for thousands of years, but then heard some ankle bells, and it awoke a sense of desire for enjoying the variety of the material world. And he came out of meditation and took a long hiatus. So Narada was pointing this out to Vyasadeva, and having the North Star, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, is vital, because there is a way in which, when we want the ultimate process of devotional service, we have to have the ultimate goal. Uttara notices this in the Bhagavatamrita, that there are certain kinds of devotees that are imbued with a kind of devotion that you don't find elsewhere. She therefore deduced that there must be a place where they would all go, or where they would worship in that mood. There must be an environment. And that is one of her questions to her son, asking Parikshit, where is that place? What is that place? So the Bhagavatam points us in that direction. And we have Brahma Samhita. First, I alluded to that earlier. Ramadi murti shukala niyamena tishtan na navatar makarod bhuvaneshu kintu Kṛṣṇa swayam samabhavat parama pumanyo govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. And that there are many manifestations of Krishna. He expands himself into various avatars and kalas, parts. Still, he's the original. What's more, his qualities are topmost. So, when we read in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam about the pastimes of Lord Rāmacandra, we find a quick summary in the 9th chapter. Shukadeva Goswami is explaining the appearance of Lord Ram in the world. And there's much to be said about him. He gives a summary there. Our acharyas give commentary on that description. One of the explanations of, or descriptions of Lord Ram is that his abode in the spiritual world, Ayodhya, is in the district of Mathura. And, of course, we know in the hierarchy of realms, Goloka namni nijadamni tale tatasya devi mahesha haridam suteshu teshu te prabhava nishaya vihitaschayena govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. There's Devi Dham, there's Mahesh Dham, above Mahesh Dham is Haridam, and above Haridam is Goloka. And there are various divisions in Goloka Vrindavan. One of them is especially devoted to, as there are unlimited varieties in the spiritual world for the taste, that where the Lord's forms are very human-like, they're considered topmost. The Somya Vapu, the very pleasing form, is Arjuna even mentions to Krishna after he shows this universal form, show me the Somya Vapu now. I want to see that sublime form of your human-like form that I can relate to heart, as a friend to friend, or as we know from the other rasas, playing with him directly as a boy or as a little child. The parents' hearts are absorbed in serving him in parenthood, and of course there's Madhurya Rasa. And all those are facilitated by Krishna's appearing like a human. And Rāmacandra also has that natural attraction. As noted by our acharyas, 3 manifestations of Krishna are all opulent. There is Nrsimhadev. As we hear reference from Prahlad Maharaj himself when he refers in his prayers to Nrsimhadev as a Govinda. He's calling out to Nrsimhadev, but he sees him as Govinda because he's Krishna, but just he's a little angry. And then we have the form of Lord Rāmacandra, who's also mentioned in our Shastras as being among all the avatars, among the 3 topmost, all opulent. Rāmacandra has the beauty and, of course, the power. And then there's Krishna. So these 3 are considered. But is that the end of the comparison? We find that, of course, in the Bhagavatamrita, when Gopakumar, who's destined for, by his very nature, a relationship with Madan Gopal in Vrindavan, which would be in Gokula Vrindavan and then Goloka Vrindavan. As he's guruless, apparently, his guru had given him a mantra and then fainted before explaining it, because just hearing the mantra he had given his disciple and being deeply absorbed in the meaning of it, he fainted, and his disciple thought, what did I do wrong? And then this guru wandered off. He was guruless. He had continued to chant his mantra, and by the mantra, of course, we know tapastam tapa etena tava siddhir bhavishyati. By your mantra, as Brahma told Divya Saraswati told Uvacha Purtastasmai Tasya Divya Saraswati Kama Kṛṣṇaya Govinda He Gopi Jani Tipi Balabhaya Priyavanir Mantram Te Dasati Priyam Tapastam Tapa Etena Tava Siddhir Bhavishyati. That I'm giving you this mantra, said Divine Saraswati to Brahma, and by chanting it, you'll attain perfection. So Gopakumar was chanting his mantra, and his Krishna mantra, but he had not yet discovered his heart's desire. Although in the multitude of places he went throughout the universe and the various dhams in which he personally saw the Lord, he thought for some time that he was fully fulfilled, because who wouldn't? When you see the Supreme Personality of God in any of his forms, you're fully absorbed and drawn in. But his heart's desire, Abhishtadoham, was not fully reached by any of that. And Narada guides Gopakumar at one point as Gopakumar is getting closer to his ultimate destination, that go to Ayodhya and visit Rāmacandra, as he wanted him to engage with the very personal form of the Lord. He had seen many other forms in Vaikuntha, the Lord four-armed, and even for Narayan, that was difficult, because he's more attracted, is Narayan, to pure devotional service of the devotees who want to interact with him on a friendly level. Sanitya nitya sambanna prakritischa paraivasa. He has eternal kinship with the devotees, and of course Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach this. This is the topmost secret of all secrets that he came to teach. Anarpita charim chirat karana yavatirna kalau. In the Kali Yuga he did it. That there's something beyond just the majestic worship of the Lord. There's a very personal way to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in his evolution, Narada, observing the evolution of Gopakumar, Narada advises him to go see the Lord Ram. And there's a particularly beautiful description of Gopakumar's meeting with Lord Rāmacandra, who is extremely personal with him. And Gopakumar there, as we read it, we also become fully absorbed and think, okay, this is the ultimate destination. Because Rāmacandra is so perfect, he's so beautiful, he's so loving to his devotees, as he was to Gopakumar. But then there's a sense of wanting something more. And of course, we find, even in Ram's Leela, there are ways in which some want more from him, and they approach him. For instance, the Shrutis, personified. During the time of Lord Rāmacandra, when they saw Lord Ram, how could they not be head over heels? It's like, did you see that? And some of those Shrutis had an inclination to worship him in an amorous way. And Rāmacandra said, not right now. He didn't say it, but it was communicated, because Krishna communicates with all of us constantly. Ye yata mam prapadyante. He's always responding to whatever we want. He's there within the heart. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshara janatishtiti brahmayansa sarvabhutani yantra drujani maya. He's accompanying us wherever we go, to whatever situation we end up in. He's there to guide us. And of course, a verse beloved to all devotees, Tesham satata yuktanam pachatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhayogam tam yena mamupayanti te. That he's there just to reciprocate our love by showing us how to come closer to him if we ever happen to have that inclination within our heart. He says, I'll give you the intelligence to come. I'm just waiting for that moment. And so when Gopakumar went to Rāmacandra, he was absorbed until he felt something wanting, and then he came to the direction of Narada again, or Narada came to him and gave him direction how to go further, which was to after that he went to Dwarka, and after that he ended up going to Vrindavan. There are, as I'm trying to point out, there's a hierarchy. Krishna's all perfect. There's perfect, more perfect, most perfect. And there are various gradations in between those unlimitedly, because variety means there's so much variety, as we see here in the material world, for me, too much. That's when it comes to shopping. But in the spiritual world, there are unlimited varieties of ways that one can interact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and abhishdoham, feel one's heart's desire completely fulfilled. And as evidence that there is this hierarchy, especially with Nrsingadev, Rāmacandra, and Krishna himself, Rupa Goswami in his Lakhu Bhagavatamrita describes that there are various incarnations of Jai and Vijay. For instance, Jai first takes birth as Hiranyakashipu. Boo. And then he takes birth as Ravan. Boo. Then he takes birth as Śiśupāla. Boo. Now this is arrangement of the Lord, but there's an analysis. But I should say, Jiva Goswami gives an analysis, or Rupa Goswami gives an analysis of the ways in which Jai, who is manifested in these different bodies, had relationships with all three of these forms of the Lord. That is, first is Nrsingadev, second is Rāmacandra, third is Krishna. So let's analyze that for a minute. When Jai came in contact with Lord Nrsingadev, and he was definitively killed by him. No one can say he wasn't killed by the Lord himself, because we have photographic evidence that he tore him to shreds and opened up his heart and just ripped him a new one and put his intestines around it. It was definitive. And Jai didn't attain liberation. Rather, he took birth in another form as Ravan. Now, Ravan was not poor. He was extremely rich. Everything he had was gold. He lived with extreme mystic powers and unlimited material wealth at his command, servants, everything. And as Rupa Goswami says, what happened here? When he saw, Hiranyakashipu saw Lord Nrsingadev attacking, he thought, who is this? He couldn't recognize this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He saw a fearsome form attacking him, and he died in fear of that form, but he didn't recognize him, Lord Nrsingadev, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because he was killed by him, he attained great wealth and opulence in his next life by proximity to the Lord. And Ravana had that natural opulence, but he still had that enmity towards the Lord. And in his death, by the hands of Rāmacandra, Ravana mistakenly thought, who is this human who's killing me? How is it even possible? He was so surprised because in his contract that he had drawn up with the best attorneys on the planet for how to live forever, he had neglected out of vanity to put in that he would be killed, immune to being killed by a human, because he thought, I didn't want to put that in there because it's obvious, right? And based on that opening, Lord Rāmacandra, who came in an apparent human form, had killed Ravana, but still in that death, Ravana was thinking of him as an extremely powerful human. But we find in the case of Śiśupāla, a couple of things happened. As he took birth, he was also extremely opulent. You may have noticed in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Śiśupāla was materially no slouch. He was practically described as more opulent than Kṛṣṇa. He had so much opulence, he was killed by Rāmacandra in his next life. He had all these assets. And we all know that when he was a little child, he began saying the Lord's names. I didn't say chanting, but he was blaspheming Kṛṣṇa. He still had this hatred towards the Lord. And in his last act, at the Rājasūya Yajña, where he tried to ruin the whole yajna, he waited till the perfect time to stand up and say, Krishna's not qualified, because previously they could have taken back the yajna, but after it was already finished, and he said, if they had followed him and said Krishna wasn't qualified to be the first one worshipped in this yajna, it would have nullified the whole Rājasūya Yajña. So he was diabolical in his calculation because he hated Krishna so much. And he stood up in the assembly and began blaspheming Krishna. So what happened there? Krishna artfully cut off his head. Artfully, I say, because it was a yajna, he didn't want to spill any blood. So he's so precise in the way he chopped off his head. Sorry, I know it's a family show. That no blood hit the ground. What's deeper, and what's related to this conversation, is that Śiśupāla, in the last moment before his head was severed, drank the beauty of the face of Lord Krishna. What's more, he had been chanting Krishna's names. And this I brought up at the Japa circle this morning, as mentioned by Rupa Goswami. There's two main ways that one becomes perfect in this life. One is by saying the names of the Lord, and the other is by seeing his beauty, because it's unparalleled. And Rupa Goswami uses this as proof, because Hiranyakashipu saw Lord Nrsingadev. Ravana saw Lord Rāmacandra. No liberation. But when Śiśupāla saw Krishna and said his names, he was liberated at that point. So there's a way in which the Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, we have the description of Lord Rāmacandra within the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. But it's by way of comparison to take us through the rasas and bring us to the ultimate conclusion that Krishna is the reservoir of all rasas. What's more, his beauty is incomparable, even to his other forms. Let's not get it wrong. They're all Krishna. But only Krishna is Krishna. And only those killed by Krishna are completely liberated. Fascinatingly to me, in the commentary of Rupa Goswami, he quotes from the Vedanta Sutra. And he gives this verse, which I had never noticed before, except when I was reading about this topic. He quotes it. So is that Sutra 3.3.53? You don't have it on the thing, so don't worry. Where he says, Na samangana Śiśupāla gemrityu vanahi okapani. And the translation is, as death, common to all, does not mean mukti, but only attainment of any particular region of enjoyment, so mukti is not attained by any ordinary or common vision of the Lord, obtained by every being when the Lord incarnates on earth as an avatar. And the purport by Baladev Vidyabhushan goes into detail about how one actually attains liberation from the world. And this verse is quoted by Rupa Goswami because it's in line with this understanding that only the form of Krishna, when he kills others, or when people are in his presence, when they get killed, like at Kurukshetra, that they attain ultimate liberation. Conclusion, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one has the qualities that he has, and all other emanations are beautiful, fascinating, powerful, but nobody's Krishna. He's the ultimate. Comments, questions, complaints?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You mentioned that the three most opulent incarnations are Krishna, Rāmacandra, and Nrsimhadev. Why then did Vijay get beaten by Krishna, Rama, but then instead of Nrsimhadev, he was beaten by Varahadev? Is there any significance to that?
You mean Hiranyaka was beaten by Varaha?
Yes.
Well, what's wrong with him being defeated by Varahadev? I mean, how does that, what's the question about why he was defeated by Varahadev?
More as in, you were mentioning how they were the three most opulent forms.
Yeah, but follow it to the end. That was the first one. And then you had Kumbhakarna was the second one. Same situation as Jai, so we can just take them in parallel. And the third one was Dantavakra, and there Krishna had defeated Dantavakra right outside the gate of Vrindavan, actually. And personally came there from Dwarka, speedily came because he heard that he was close to Vrindavan. He said, I'm getting over there now to defeat him before he even enters into Vrindavan, because that's one of the main reasons he was outside of Vrindavan, was to defeat all the enemies and not lead anybody back to disturb the residents of Vrindavan. So there, he killed him, and Dantavakra attained liberation. That was his third. Does that help? Did it answer your question? Each of them was defeated subsequently, Jai and Vijay, by an expansion of the Lord. And they didn't, either of them, attain ultimate liberation until they came to Krishna Lila and were defeated by Krishna. This is the logic Rupa Goswami is giving.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, as he mentions, just for the articulation of his principle, he said, it's the charm of Krishna's names and the beauty of his transcendental body that ultimately liberated Śiśupāla. Okay, others? Yes, 1, 2, 3. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You mentioned the word kala, and this reference of 64 kalas. Could you elaborate what the
Well, I don't know if it's at 64 kalas, but I was in reference to how Krishna expands himself into various forms. This is for his own enjoyment, starting from the very beginning. Eko Bahusham means God is one, but he expands himself into many for his own enjoyment. Because, for instance, if you were a queen and you didn't have any subjects, and you were just the queen, and there was nobody else, what would be the use of you being a queen? So in a similar way, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. So he expands himself into unlimited forms for his own enjoyment. So he can enjoy in unlimited varieties. That's why there are unlimited varieties. There are unlimited living entities, like we're living entities, and we're asankhya. You can't count how many there are because God's unlimited and he wants unlimited relationships. How many relationships do you have? Mother, father, sister, brother,
many,
teacher, so forth. I mean, we could probably, if we spent all day, figure them all out. And maybe you have 10,000 or something like that. But Krishna's relationships are asankhya. They're uncountable. And so there's ways in which he also accommodates the unique kind of devotion that every devotee has by expanding himself into varieties of forms. There are varieties of deities, there are varieties of incarnations, because each living entity has an innate desire to worship Krishna in a specific way. So Krishna, yeyatamam prapadyana, he accommodates that. And he'll come in various forms. So it was in reference to that I mentioned that Krishna has kala, or expansions. He expands himself into many forms. One of the ways he expands himself is called Vaibhava Prakash. Vaibhava Prakash is exhibited, for instance, when Krishna met the two devotees, Shrutadev, who was a Brahmana, and Bahulashva, who was a king. And they both lived in Matila. And they had never been to see Krishna in Dwarka. Why had they never been to see Krishna? Because they had their home deities. And they couldn't leave them. And they had services they were doing for Krishna. They couldn't leave them. So they'd never been to Dwarka, but Krishna knew of the quality of their devotion. So he decided one day, I'm going to go see them. As a good case for keeping your head down and doing your service. Because Krishna will come see you. And when he came there to meet them, he had brought with him sages. Normally sages don't get in cars, or back then chariots. But Krishna insisted, and he told the sages, no, please get on. I don't want you to get fatigued on the way there, because they were going to go with him. So they all rode there to Matila, and when Shrutadev and Bahulashva came out to greet the Lord, independently, Krishna expanded himself into himself and all the sages, so that Bahulashva and Shrutadev both thought, oh, he just came to my house. and he stayed there to be entertained by them and served by them for some time. We find also his expansions in that way in Dwarka when Krishna marries 16,108 wives. But it's not that each one of them had to wait 16,108 days for him to stop by. He simultaneously lived in each one of the palaces with all of them. And each one of them thought, he's with me. When Krishna would leave his palaces in the morning, there would be 16,108 Krishnas. And when all of them would walk outside the gate, it was a gated community, outside the gate, they'd all merge into one. And then he would go to the Sudharma assembly house and do his work. Supposed work. He doesn't really work. It's unemployed. But there's also, we know from the pastime I mentioned earlier, how Krishna had expanded himself into the calves, cows, and boys. Identical, down to the very hair on the back of every calf. And that's called Vaibhava Prakash. And Krishna has Vaibhava Vilas. And Lord Chaitanya explains this to Sanatana Goswami. He talks about all the different forms of the Lord and their different categories of expansion. And all of them are meant for various pastimes. And they're unlimited. The Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is one of the questions that sages ask. So tell us about all these avatars. It's called Avatar Katha. And he says, well, first of all, I'll tell you that they're unlimited as the waves on the ocean. They're coming again and again and again in different forms, and they're unlimited varieties to accommodate the relationships with all the living entities. What to speak of in the material world, he comes specifically out of compassion. It's the main purpose for the material creation, the Srishti Lila, where he expands himself into this material creation. He's the ingredient cause. And he's also the efficient cause, where he enlivens the material nature and brings up all the varieties. Just like if you take a straw and you blow air into water, the water is the ingredient cause, and the straw and the air that you blow into is the efficient cause. So what are bubbles? They're little manifestations in the water. So Krishna manifests all the different forms in the material world, and according to the living entities' desires in this material world, they're situated variously in the modes of material nature, according to their desires. Asau gunamayar bhavir bhuta sukshmendriyatmavi sva nirmiteshu nirvishto bhunkte bhuteshu tadgunan. And still he comes to liberate the living entities by appearing in these various incarnations, just to attract the attention, so they'll have something to talk about other than TikTok. That's something. Okay, Shraddha. Is that right? Okay.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for taking us on this beautiful journey through the various Shastras. It was very enlivening. So one request and a question. The request is that if in one of your future sessions you can take us through the Avatar Katha, that will be very interesting. And my question is that as we were watching Jay's journey through the various births that he took, finally getting liberated when he sees Krishna, so is it the same way it happens in the Mahabharata also, that people who have that, like in Bhagavad Gita it says, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya, right? So he's not visible to everybody. So it's only those who, in the Mahabharata war, who saw and looked upon him as Krishna, or how does that happen?
Actually, that's explained in the Vedanta Sutra verse. That there's a way in which one must cultivate knowledge of the Supreme Lord along with one's practice of devotional service. We know this from the Bhagavatam. Tachstradhatana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shruta grihitaya. That one can attain success in devotional service fortified with scriptural knowledge of who the Lord is, besides one's practice. And it's also emphasized by Bhaktivinoda Thakur that besides chanting Hare Krishna, you also have to simultaneously cultivate Sambandha Jnana, understand your relationship, non-relationship with the material world and your eternal relationship with Krishna. And so he points out, does Baladev Vidyabhushan in his purport to the Vedanta Sutra verse that I mentioned, that it's in the Linga Sharira, the subtle body of the living entity, is liberated. One becomes a Jivan Mukta when one receives Atma Tattva Gyan. A Jivan Mukta is not enough to go back to Godhead, but if one's a Jivan Mukta and one sees Krishna, then there's a sense of the proper understanding that, oh, that's Krishna. And then that person is naturally liberated by that experience. Whereas sometimes people, they don't have any inclination toward Krishna, and they also don't have Atma Tattva Gyan, and even though Krishna is present, they don't get any benefit. An example is given of this in the 7th canto of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, after Parikshit Maharaj asked the question to Srukadeva Goswami, how is it that God's equal to everyone? Because it seems like, especially in previous cantos, he shows favor to Indra and his friends. Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Hridayati Yuke Yugam. So how is that? So he said, no, he's impartial. And he gives the example that in a classroom, a teacher teaches everybody, but some students don't do their homework and they don't pay attention. So is that the teacher's fault or the student's fault? And there's a responsibility from the side of the living being. And he said that everyone got benefit from the Lord because any contact with him is powerful, but there's one person who didn't, surprisingly, which is Vena. I mean, it's funny, in a conversation about him being equal to all, he points out, well, Vena didn't get anything, he just went to hell. And why? Because he thought he was God. And he didn't even recognize that there was a God or Krishna at all. And therefore he didn't get the kind of benefit that Kamsa got. For instance, Kamsa was thinking, that Krishna, I got to find him somewhere. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Whereas Vena is like, no, I'm God. Don't even talk about a God because that's who I am. And he didn't get the benefit. So it has to do with the ways in which one is predisposed. And so we find this in the Bhagavad Gita also. Of course, we have Yesham Tvanta Katam Papam Jananam Punyakarmanam Te Dvandva Mohanir Mukta Bhajanti Mam Dridavrata, which is a verse in which Krishna says those who are trending towards the mode of goodness, they're more apt to take the devotional service seriously But other commentaries say, well, those in the mode of goodness are generally hanging out in places where devotees are going to show up, and therefore they're going to make advancement in devotional service. Of course, in the Sankirtan movement, devotees can show up anywhere. So, but then you have the series in the seventh chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukritino arjuna arto jignasa artarti jnani cham paratarshava tesham jnani nitya yukta eka bhakti vishishyate priyohi jnani no tyartam aham sacha mama priya udarak saravaevaite jnani twap matam astita sahiyukta mam evam utamam gatim. And here is a telling sign to answer your question more, is that there's a way in which Krishna says there's 4 kinds of people who approach me. Those who are, lost their 401k. Then there's, they want wealth. The others who are suffering in different ways, and the ones, they're inquisitive. Then there's what's called the jnani. There's an ordinary jnani. These are people who have eka bhakti vishishyate. This comes in the second verse. After he names these 4 kinds of sukritinas, the sukritis, they're pious people who come to me, he says. So they're all good. But out of those, tesham jnani nitya yukta eka bhakti. So the jnani here is not just an ordinary jnani who's a kind of Muni speculating about the absolute truth. It's a devotee. That's why Krishna says, eka bhakti vishishyate, priyo hi jnani nota, that person's especially dear to me. And then udarak saravaevaite jnani tvatvayamamatam. So they're all magnanimous souls, but the devotee, he's talking about eka bhakti vishishyate, that person is especially dear to me. And in that group of Sukritis, those who can approach Krishna or do approach Krishna because they have an impetus to do so for various reasons, if one's a bhakta, then one's especially ripe for when they see Krishna, then naturally they're liberated. So to the degree that one has some predisposition, to that degree one is more readily liberated, and to the degree that one has no such disposition, we have other lists in the Bhagavad Gita. Namam duskritunam muna prapadyante naradama. They don't surrender. Right? Okay, there was one more, and there's a couple on Zoom, and we have Radhakripa Prabhu. Okay.
I was appreciating the point which you said about we have getting attracted to the names of the Lord and seeing His beauty. And I was reflecting how we have the process of Bhagavad Marg and Panchratri Marg, which have both 2 things in common, like focusing on the names and qualities of the Lord and seeing His beauty. So my question was if you could elaborate more on how we can take the best advantage of following these 2 processes, Bhagavad Marg and Panchratri Marg.
It's given by Lord Chaitanya. We have those who enter into the Guru Parampara become especially privileged. If you look up the word privilege and you analyze its meaning, it means a private law. You get a special set of laws for those who are devotees. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially came to offer this to everybody because in the Kali Yuga, it's very difficult to take spiritual practice. It's hard to find a genuine process where you can become fully absorbed in pure devotional service. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes it available to everybody. And if you enter into the Sri Guru Parampara system, which is the recommendation of Rupa Goswami, when he talks about the 64 process items of devotional service, he says, Adao Guru Ashrayam, so Guru Prashad, and take up the initiation, go into the process deeply through Guru. That's the entrance way. If you do that in the Guru Parampara for the process that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave, then you go through the process and you receive Harinam initiation, Bhagavat Marg, and then as you continue on that, then you know the 5, right? The acronym is Temple Presidents Need More Yes Men. So it goes Tapa, Paundra, Nama, Mantra, Yaga. So Tapa means you turn away from... There's different interpretations of it because it's the same process used by the Ramanujas, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains it in an essay. He says, Tapa for the devotees, for the entering the Vaishnava, you turn away from the material world. It's your tapasya. It's like, no thanks. I'm going to go a different direction. And then Pondra means you start identifying yourself as a Vaishnava. And then a Nama means you get a new name. And you start chanting the name with a vow. And then Mantra means you enter into the Panchatric mantra. So entering into Panchatric requires a guru. Nowadays you can go to Loi Bazaar or maybe go online and just order deities. But deity worship, we want to enter into the mantra. You have to have a mantra to worship the Lord, and that mantra has to come from the Guru Parampara. That's the prerequisite for the Panchatric Vidi. Doesn't mean if you have deities at home now and you're not initiated that you should close the curtains forever. Gaura-Nitai are very forgiving. If you're on the pathway, it just means you can't use the proper mantras, and you can't enter into Panchatric proper without initiation with the Diksha Guru. Divyam Jnanam Todadyat Kuryat Papa Sankshayam Tasmat Dikshet Tisa Prokta Deshikais Tatfut Kovidai. The intelligent people describe this process of Diksha as receiving the mantra for Divyam Jnanam. Then you can worship the deity, and that's the process through which one enters, and that's available through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lineage, that people will invite you in. And if you enter into the process, there are many different Gaudiya groups. People sometimes say, why not go here, there, and everywhere? Fine, go ahead. But if you find a process where everything's included and you feel at home, then you're in the right place. And don't get all scatterbrained about it. Stick to one process. Find it, remove all your doubts, and then become fully situated in it. And despite the fact that institutions are cumbersome, people are endlessly troublesome, and being in an organization means there are going to be scandals, you find the essence of it, the process, and you follow it to the best of your ability. And if you can do that in Kali Yuga, you got the best of the best. And you can do Panchatric Vidi right here. The curtain's open, and we saw Hansapriya and Bali Mardon there, happy as bees in a spring day. You know, they're decorating the deity, and whoever else was back there doing that. Those who made the garlands and all this. I mean, where else are you going to get this in Silicon Valley? When I take these garlands out, whenever I get them, I put them in my, well, I don't put them in my, Gitavali puts them in my instrument bag, so it's in my car, right after Youth Jam. And then I take them to somebody, say, here you go. And they're like, what? They're transported to another planet, which is Goloka Vrindavan. So if you want to live in Goloka Vrindavan, join the Guru Parampara. And there's a complete menu here that is good enough to go back to Godhead in the process that Prabhupada set up. Okay, now I said we're going to go to the... Okay, we'll go to who's on the left, because that means they were first. Krishna Saga, then we'll go to Radha Kripa, and then for the grand finale, we're going to go to Vaikuntha Nayaka. Okay, online Krishna Saga and company. And by the way, this is unprecedented in ISKCON. It's the latest thing, which is to have Grahastha traveling Sankirtan parties. I've told a few people about it, and they went, and it's a trend that could change the world, is changing the world, and I think it's just the most beautiful thing. So please tell us what's going on out there. Yeah. Now, whatever you say better be good after that.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for your blessings and encouragement. We would like to introduce Derek. He's also joining here for the first time. We met Kamlakshi met him actually last year in Oregon State University, and this year we met him again, and it was so awesome that how much spiritual progress he has made. He has read Bhagavad Gita few times, heard many times, and also now he offers vegetarian food to Krishna. And yeah, one thing I like most is when I met him, he said that when he went to the Portland temple on Janmashtami, he 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 said, and there were so many people, and he said, I don't know here anyone but you, Krishna. So it's really inspiring to see. So, welcome, Derek. Would you like to say hi or introduce yourself to our community here? If you're still online, you're still here, but something. Yeah, maybe I'll ask him offline. Thank you.
Yeah, we find all the time people come to Krishna consciousness say, where'd you hear about that? They say, I met Krishna. Where? In a parking lot.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Is Derek here?
He's here.
Okay, well, let's not embarrass him. If he wants to speak up anytime, Derek, you just raise your hand and we'll call on you. And in the meantime, we're going to go to Radha Kripa.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. After hearing today's lecture, my heart was filled with gratitude to all the acharyas. I'm starting with the Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, but then to the Prabhupada, then especially to you, because you have taken so much time in churning all the literature which acharyas has presented, and you have just gifted us just sharing out of just compassion to all of us in such a beautiful and simple manner. And then if I would not been here today, I would have really missed something special. So just wanted to thank you.
Kuchira Koso. Igualmente. Okay. Vaikuntha Nayaka, coming all the way from Mysore, the home of Mysore Pak.
Dandavats Maharaj,
Hare
all
Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada to you. Maharaj, my question is, in the beginning you mentioned about the 6 philosophies in Sanatana Dharma, and you said how Vedavyasas, the Vedanta Sutra, this is the perfect and complete. I was just wondering if the other philosophies also have some kind of an undercurrent of bhakti. But the reason why I'm asking this is because Srila Prabhupada gave you the name Vaisesika Dasa. So I'm guessing there must be some devotional element to this. So if you think appropriate, if you can elaborate on this, please.
Sure. As far as my name goes, it is a name of Krishna because it has, the meaning of it is Vishesha. As you all know, who study Sanskrit, that means specific or special, unique. And Krishna is unique. What's more, his creation is unique. There's not one living entity that's the same as another. There's not one sunset or sunrise that's the same as another. Everything in Krishna's creation is unique and special. And Vaisheshika is a name that brings out that special aspect of Krishna. In fact, it means Krishna as the most special and all of his creation as special. And as far as the darshans go, there's a Sankhya. From Sankhya, we extract the understanding of how the material manifestations evolve from subtle to gross. I think I mentioned that one. In yoga, we have the eightfold system of meditation, and of course we get from Patanjali Muni, the originator of that philosophy, the psychology, yoga psychology, how the mind works. And it's given in detail from that. Then we have Nyaya, which we get the tools of logic. And then we have Vaisesika philosophy, which is descriptive of the categories of metaphysical knowledge. And then we have Mimamsa, through which we'll find extensive use of Mimamsa from our acharyas, especially Jiva Goswami, Rupa Sanatans, have used their ways of analyzing scripture. There are various rules and regulations and ways in which, protocol, in which one can very accurately and precisely decipher the meanings of the Shastra and so forth. And that is readily borrowed from Mimamsa and used by the devotees who follow Srila Vyasadeva. So there are elements in each one of them that are useful and informative. Prabhupada quotes from Patanjali in the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, when he talks about various levels of consciousness and samadhi and the other ones as well. We find throughout our Shastras, but only Srila Vyasadeva comes to the point. All the other ones you'll find fall short somewhere in coming to the ultimate conclusion, which is that Jiv Kṛṣṇa Das e Bishwas, Korletor Dukanai. You're a servant of Lord Krishna. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, incomplete knowledge of the complete whole is the only causes dissatisfaction. But Srila Vyasadeva's magnus opus, the Bhagavatam, gives complete satisfaction and perfection. And now that's it. So thank you everyone for coming out on a... Yes, Prabhu.
I was recollecting a very nice paragraph in the purport of 10th canto, 87th verse, 87th chapter, 25th verse. There is a nice paragraph which connects how the Vedanta Sutra is the ultimate truth among all these philosophies, and how all these philosophies actually help us to connect to Vedanta Sutra. I mean, how they contribute to that. There's a nice paragraph in that.
That's what I was quoting from when I just gave.
Okay.
You showed a Kripa? Okay, let's look at it since you actually so expertly brought up the verse. Go to the translation, please. 87:25 says, supposed authorities who declare that matter is the origin of existence, that the permanent qualities of the soul can be destroyed, that the self is compounded of separate aspects of spirit and matter, or that material transactions constitute reality, all such authorities base their teachings on mistaken ideas that hide the truth. The dualistic conception that the living entity is produced from the three modes of nature is simply a product of ignorance. Such a conception has no real basis in you, for you are transcendental to all illusion and always enjoy perfect total awareness. We'd read the purport, but we're already over time, and the 11th canto has the longest purports in the whole Bhagavatam, because it's the one they started on, did the servants of Srila Prabhupada, and some had, after that, accused them of being overly enthusiastic. Okay, Radha Kripa. Yashoda Kripa, sorry.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
The Kripa brothers.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, just a little fun stuff here. When Rāmacandra Prabhu was asking this question, I looked up online on Google about Vaisesika, the name and all. So it gives all the details that you mentioned. At the bottom it says Vaisesika Dasa. There is a person named Vaisesika Dasa who is an ISKCON leader, but he has got nothing to do with this philosophical school. And generative AI is experimental.
Thank you, ChatGPT. I appreciate that for clarifying. Okay, and I think Krishna Saka had his hand up for the close. Or did you just leave your hand up?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare
We
Krishna.
just want to also welcome Rāmacandra Prabhu, who is from Seattle, and he has lovingly hosted us in this place.
Oh, look at that. That's the best. Hare Krishna. Give him. Yeah. You know. See, that's spiritual intelligence. If you live in a house, it tends to become a cocoon and you get stuck in there. But if you're smart, like Prabhu is, in inviting Vaishnavas in, then what happens is your house becomes a vibrant ashram. And you can survive many decades of the Grihastha ashram and come out the other side unscathed. So this is the best use of one's home. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for facilitating the expansion of the Sankirtan movement in this way. And may you get 1,000 times credit for all the rounds that you chant, for bringing in all these devotees and helping expand the movement. Hare Krishna. Om Tat Sat.
I was talking to Prabhu, and I realized that we are getting pallets and pallets of books.
Neighbors are starting to wonder, like.
Yeah, so it was amusement to see the pallets of books coming my home. So I'm still trying to fathom the scale at which our devotees are distributing books. I look forward to participate, benefit, and cooperate in this. We are also now translating the books getting distributed in Washington. Now we are collecting the contacts so that we can teach them Bhagavad Gita and cultivate them. So we need your blessings for the project, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Tatastu. Hare Krishna. Dear Srila Prabhupada. Yes.
Sorry, Maharaj, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Maharaj, I just wanted to say one more thing. Today we are also going for an Indian store. It's considered as one of the best Indian store in the world. There are only people from two companies, Amazon and Microsoft, who come to the store, and they are always willing to support this cause of Gram Vidyadan. So I just wanted to take your prayers and blessings.
May you have the biggest day in the history of ISV book distribution. Hare Krishna. That's actually how it all started at an Indian store, and I forget the name of it, Indian Cash and Carry. We renamed it the Gold Mine. It ran out of gold eventually, but it gave us a good start. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev, Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, if you so desire, please empower us to spread your glories all over the world. Please keep us in the association of pure devotees. And please let us always chant your holy names and be enchanted by your beautiful forms. Thank you for considering our requests. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
We're waiting for the unveiling of the new slide, which will come at the end of Youth Jam. It's a secret until you see it. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalptaruscha kripasinave vachappatitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakodi vaishnaviniki jai go premanande haribo.